What's going on, everybody? Christian Hernandez here with another new SVG sponsor spotlight. This is a huge one. We're very excited to have them inside the SVG family. If you know in-venue production or you know kind of anything that has to do with a venue, you know this company. It is WJHW, and I'm pleased to be joined by Charles Adkinson. He's the company's associate principal. Charles, how you doing today, and how you doing so far in 2023?
Hey, Christian. Doing well. Busy, busy, busy.
As always, you guys are one of the busier companies, especially with system integration and venue design. And that's what we're here to talk about exactly. So I'm sure a lot of people know you and the people that you work for in this industry, but we'll get right into it. Any recent venue-based or team-based designs that you want to talk about that is public knowledge that we can discuss?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always projects we're careful to not talk about because we're under NDA and things like that with public money procurement. But we do have a couple of exciting projects under NDA. One in the NFL is a nice big exciting project we're working on. We've been on that team for a while. The ones we like to highlight, obviously, they're not exactly old hat. I'm not sure they ever will be. Places like Allegiant and SoFi are just such great examples of what we do, and part of our technology design aspect, but also just the way we integrate into design teams and things like that, right? Early and often when you get a consultant involved is the best course for really setting an amazing forward-looking technology agenda. But we've done some great stuff with the 49ers, and we're currently engaged with the Packers over a couple of years of concourse renovations and things in bowl and exciting stuff like that. So yeah, lots of great projects on the go and across all the pro sports leagues and throughout college as well. And very, very busy.
Right. Super Bowl, at time of recording, Super Bowl 57 just ended in Arizona, but next year, Super Bowl 58 will be in Vegas. So everyone will see Allegiant Stadium on that big stage. So very excited to see that. And we're also very excited to report on those projects when they are kind of public knowledge. We'll make sure to share more light on that. But the next question I want to ask you, Charles, is system integration and venue design seems to be changing and shifting ever so quickly throughout, even the last 6 to 12 months. So what are you seeing over the past year, and how are you and your company kind of combating that change?
Well, I mean, obviously the elephant in the room is just how things work with supply chains and planning after COVID. And, it seems like everybody's working on skinny resources and a very, very busy timeline and a very short schedule. A big part of it is obviously a lot more involvement on a very regular basis. It sort of used to be very phased. We talk now, and then a bunch of people do things, and we'll talk again later, and then a bunch of people do things. And like the days of like not having weekly conference calls is long gone. There's just so many moving parts, and timelines haven't adjusted quite to the reality of how the world works now. And so we find there's just a lot more discussion, trying to make sure we lead the owners and lead the folks on the rest of the design team to understand what it's like to do business in the technology world in 2023 and beyond. Yeah, that's been a big trend. Another one, obviously, big trend always in technology these days is convergence, right? Huge amount of convergence. It's been a buzzword I've been doing this for 25, 30 years, and convergence was like the first buzzword I ever learned. But the reality is that I truly am now seeing things where there's no such thing as an AV department, a broadcast department, an IT department now. Most places that have modernized it all, that's all one department, one boss, one budget. And we can continue to see that moving further and further down the road in that direction, where you can't hire an AV guy that doesn't know IP, and you can't hire an IP guy that doesn't understand that there's more than just email and internet browsing on his network, right? Yeah, and so that's probably the biggest trend that we can see driving forward, and we're going to see that, I think, just move way off the deep end this year and next with some of the projects that are going on.
Right, you bring up a good point. A lot of control rooms are either still SDI baseband or they're going full IP. But I think the thing is there are some hybridness that you can call the kind of middle area in terms of either mixing IP and SDI and making sure there's interoperability. What are you still seeing in terms of your point of view with teams that are either making the jump to IP or still trying to mix those two together? And also remote workflows, either since COVID, remote workflows are still some of the things that people are seeing, either to offset control room space or things like that. What are you seeing in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take those in two things there. The first one is the remote workflow aspect of it. Obviously, years ago, producer editors, predators as we call them, were always the ones going, me being here at this desk is about the worst use of my time, right? Like I need to be out with people doing things and having them on the other side of my camera lens, and then I need to be able to run and gun and do what I have to do there.
Right.
And so we've definitely seen an encouraging response to that. You know, some people have kind of gone back to the office. For the folks that it never made sense, I think there's been a respectful understanding that there are other ways to work and other places to work, and that place shifting and time shifting are really critical. And obviously, technology designs have to support that. And so we've seen a trend towards that. And we continue to help push those things forward with the way, you know, media asset management systems work and the way getting content shuffled around has to work. You know, obviously data and data requirements and file sizes get bigger and bigger, but people want to be able to do that on the other side of the world or in a neighborhood with bad signal. You know, it's also figure out how to address those sorts of things. You know, I think that's just such a critical part of it. You know, that you really have to focus on letting people get access to the systems away from the office.
Right. Accessing things when not necessarily you have to be at the control room or the facility 2 or 3 hours before production. If you can get kind of that pre-work done, either from offsite or at home, even, it'll make your job even better. And I guess more seamless when you do have to go into the office or the control room. And it's just kind of focusing on doing the task at hand instead of the preparation stuff. The next question I have for you, Charles, and the last one, we're moving towards a time where a lot of this, especially this year, a lot of college venues are opening up, but the pro side is a little bit of a stagnation. But in the coming years, you'll have Intuit Dome in LA, you have the proposed project in Buffalo with the Bills, and the potential project with the Bears in Chicago, and just all these slew of projects, especially with the 2026 World Cup. Pre-existing venues are starting to get, you know, either refurbs or renovations to handle new workflows as the World Cup approaches. This is a long-winded of me to say, where do you see the sector of this industry and projects changing in the future as buildings get bigger, video boards get bigger, control room operations get a little bit more complex? How do you continue to get ready for a busy next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, you know, FIFA's a big one. Obviously, it's going to drive a lot of modernization, a lot of venues that didn't necessarily have it on their radar. We're really involved in a couple of those projects, helping folks understand what a football pitch is and how it works and the level of technology and integration of technology. You know, folks like FIFA, and even we even see this in MLS. You know, they've been much more willing to jump off the deep end years ago with player tracking and things like that. So they've got a lot more technology down near the field, a lot more tracking data information gathering sources around the venue. And so we certainly see that uptick taking place a lot. You know, the big thing though, obviously, just in terms of, you know, waving my magic wand of what I see down the road is that, you know, we've already deployed now an 8K replay system under our design. We've got another one under design, and we've got a few more folks that are basically saying, okay, we want to be next in line with that. And you know, the first one was a bit of a science experiment. Now you can go to a trade show and see folks with 8K stuff, you know, and not just a fancy 8K TV, but actually production technology tools. And so now we're starting, you know, we've even had one guy say, like, is 16K possible yet? And said,
Right.
not yet, not yet, but soon. And the reality is that there's just such a push towards acquire more, acquire higher quality, that it really does. You know, there are folks that are hanging around in a hybrid environment, kind of like we just talked about a minute ago. There are folks that are sort of trying to figure out where the right place is. The fact is, these days, no one's really developing SDI tool sets for anything at the higher end of the collegiate market or some of those gigantic Texas and Ohio high schools, right? That are, you know, they rival some colleges in their complexity. And certainly at the pro level, you know, there is always space to keep a system operational, but it's really impossible these days to consider how you're going to lead with technology and how you're going to compete for people to put butts in seats. If you are trying to hang on to how can we band-aid the system we bought 10 years ago or 8 years ago, you know, you really have to start thinking about, it's not really keeping up with the Joneses in your peers. It's, you know, the other guys in your league. It's just keeping up with everything that's available for that person to consider entertainment on a weekend afternoon or an evening, right? And so much of that is the in-game experience, right? And so
Right.
that's why we see those pushes for things like, you know, 8K cameras and crazy high-end sound systems and things like that, because that's the expectation now. I can watch the game at home in my underwear and, you know, with a bowl of Cheetos and happily see what's happening and get a great picture and be very comfortable. And I can have all my alternative stats and additional data streams. And so, you know, that's a big part of it too, bringing all of that fantasy data into the venue in a meaningful way. Obviously, you know, keeping our finger on the pulse of how gambling and in venue betting is going to start to change the transactional nature of doing things in the venue and where that data source is and how that all works, right? Those are all things that are out on the periphery of the discussion, but they're omnipresent. Those things are going to happen. So
Right.
it's just, there's never a moment where there isn't more data, bigger files, more bandwidth, and all of the things lead down that road, right? So we need a bigger pipe, and we need more fiber, and we need more ways to connect it. I think that's
Right.
ultimately what always turns all the conversation.
Yeah. So, and as you mentioned, things are changing ever so quickly. And even when we get to the 2026 World Cup, I'm sure another thing will pop up that people have considered in the next 3 years. But that's where you guys come in. But so, Charles, thanks for the time, man. Appreciate your time. And we're really happy to have you, WJHW as part of the family. So look forward to seeing you at events possibly and working with you in the future. Thanks for coming with us here.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you at the venues event and throughout the summer and in the fall. We're going to be at the events, and we're glad to be a sponsor. We appreciate all that SBD does. We believe in the message, and we think it's important, and we want to make sure that we support that, and we're a part of the team.